All right, Mr. Chair, it is now 5:30.
Okay, if we can go ahead and get started.
Yes,
Go
sir.
with the roll call, please, and call to order.
Perfect. Carol Crane, absent at this time. She did let me know that she was going to try via Zoom or phone call, so I'll keep an eye out. Gary Cecil.
Present.
Thank you. Bryce Chisholm.
Here.
Thank you. And Mr. Jeff Harvey, chair for today.
Present.
Awesome. And then council liaison, Councilmember Taylor. At this time, she's not present. She's going to try and hop on, but I won't give her updates if she does not get in on time. And then finally, myself, Abigail Mayorga, staff liaison present, and then Jenna Moyer as well. You have a quorum of the Ward 5 Neighborhood Advisory Board. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and go to A2. Anyone public comment?
If anyone in the crowd would like to give public comment, please make your way to the podium. No one at this time, Mr. Chair, and no one via Zoom.
Okay, I would like to say hello to Carly Borchard. Nice to see you. And Mac and everyone else in the audience. Welcome. So let's go to A3, approval of the agenda for August 8th. Have a motion?
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the agenda. Gary
I'll second.
Cecil for the record.
Bryce Chisholm will second that.
Yeah, okay, the agenda is approved. And how about the approval of the minutes from April 11th and May 9th?
Mr. Chair, I've read those. I have no corrections to suggest, so I would move to approve the minutes for the April 11th and May 9th meetings.
Bryce Chisholm, I'll second that.
Okay. And the minutes are approved. And do we have the council for the liaison report?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we'll go ahead and pass on that. If she appears, we'll continue on. How about staff liaison report?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Abigail Mayorga for the record. I do have a couple of things. I wanted to know, as we all know, the city of Reno is doing the redistricting process. Tomorrow, August 9th, will be the first reading of the maps. So they'll be going to city council for review and approval and any recommendations that the city council members may have to give regarding the couple of maps. So at this time, there are 4 maps. They are on the website, City of Reno /redistricting. So you can see those 4 maps that are going to be presented to council. The meeting will begin at 10 a.m. I do believe it's not till further in the agenda. And virtual is available. If you have comments regarding any of the maps or any questions, you can direct that to Reno public comment, and they'll be able to track any of the questions or comments that you have regarding the maps. And then I also had an update regarding a event happening in Ward 5. So Councilwoman Taylor is hosting an end of summer splash at the Northwest Pool. It's going to be a movie night and splash, so the community is welcome to partake. It begins at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. It is free to the public. Again, that's August 25th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. It'll be at the Northwest Pool. The movie that we'll be screening is Finding Dory. It's free to the public. You can bring your clear inner tubes or floaties to enjoy, and there'll be food and snacks provided. It is first come, first serve, so the capacity stops at 100. If you need more information, I we'll be sending out a constant contact regarding all that stuff. And then that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Wow, end of summer.
I know
It's kind
already.
of sad. Okay, we're going to section B for business items. Reno Police Department Quarterly Report.
Yes, Mr. or Lieutenant Dye let me know that he is on his way. Lieutenant Dye was actually running a range today, so he will be joining us a little bit later in the afternoon, so we can come back to this item.
Okay, this is a fast meeting. All right, presentation and update regarding parks and recreation and open space.
Good evening, Nathan Elliott, Parks and Recreation Director for the record. Happy to meet you all for the first time. I'm a Ward 5 resident up off of Avenida Delanda and too close to Mac for my comfort, but Avenida Delanda and off of Fox Trail. So happy to be here and give you all an update on where we're at in our Parks, Recreation and Open Space Master Plan, trying to do a citywide tour of all the NABs and just let people know it's been a long process, but we're coming down to the kind of last month and a half here. And as a part of that, we want to share with the public, this is the process that we've gone through, and to come back to the public through this website that you'll see on the screen there, to make sure that what we found in our research and discussion through the consultant is still appropriate for what the public needs. So it's got a list of needs, and then what we're asking for is feedback to make sure we prioritize those needs appropriately. So we'll go through the website here, which you can find on reno.gov/engage. And then there's a little button for that. I've also got some handouts over here that have a QR code on it for the public to access that quickly in English and Spanish. So, and beyond that, we're going to put things in our parks and libraries and some of the schools to make sure people are aware of this beyond just what we can do digitally. So as you see there, there's a beautiful picture, which I always wonder where they took that from, probably from a drone, I'm guessing, but it's an awesome view. So up at the top left, you can find out if you click on that, Abby. And scroll down a little bit. So you can kind of just a basic vision statement for the plan, what it hopes to accomplish. And essentially, this is our guiding document for Parks and Recreation. There's not as much open space as we'd like to see. The trails will be incorporated through the regional trail plan rather than do our own. It makes sense to connect those appropriately through the regional plan that's being worked on through the Parks Foundation. So just a brief overview there. So we can go to the next link. This will go through the planning process, and so it's aptly named the planning process. It talks about the phases from project initiation to vision, guiding principles and goals, developing the plan. So those three have been accomplished, and now we're in that fourth stage where we're looking for that community support, buy-in. It's going to the Recreation and Parks Commission in September for recommendation for adoption to council. And then we're targeting the last meeting in September for council adoption. Then it's time to get to work. All right. So on this next link, you can see the plan in its entirety. There's also if we hit English for my benefit here, it'd be disjointed if we tried Spanish. So there you can see there's a slideshow that is more of a summary from the consultancy group that put that together. It talks about, if we can stop here for a second, the methodology that they use to assess it. It's not just our public input. It's not just national standards, but it's also needs. So it puts the three-legged stool there to come up with what are the appropriate priorities and what are the needs for our community. So there's a national standard, but if we just went off the national standard, we might end up with way more tennis courts than we need, or we might have too many already. So that's where we want to balance that with the use and the need that the community is stating, plus the actual inventory we currently have. So on the next one. So there in the plan, there's plenty of information. If you've ever seen a master plan, there's always data. This is just a snapshot of the data to talk about some deficiencies on this slide and the next, where some places we're doing really, really well, and some places we need to catch up, or at least assess, hey, do we need to catch up based on national standards? Is there a demand for that in the community? So moving forward. The next step is the feedback. So one more click. So this is just a summary of the feedback that we received from the public. And then our top 3 community themes were improve the current park trails and facility maintenance. If you've been in our parks, if you've heard any of the council meetings, it's a challenge. Right now, we are currently funded at about half of the level we were funded at in 2008. It hasn't ever really come back like some of the other departments have recovered. So what that means for our staff is there's one of our maintenance staff for every 6 to 8 parks. So the national standard is 1 for every 10 acres. So we're doing it a little bit backwards. So that's, I think, appropriately identified by the community, is that our maintenance levels need to increase. Even before we build new things, we need to be able to maintain what we have. After that, number 2 is let's build some more. Let's improve our spaces. But then let's build some more and make sure that they're connecting with the community and meeting those needs. And then equitable access to parks. So a park in a more affluent area would look the same as a park in a more challenged area with a socioeconomic challenge. So next, please. Go ahead, one more. So here's again that vision statement, and we'll go one more for these are some of the master plan goals. That number 1 goal there is what my goal is for the next year, is to really just vet all of the opportunities we have for funding sources outside of our general fund alone. That's part of the answer, but what are some other things that we can do creatively, and also, bring solutions to council and to our public to say, if we want this, this is what that's going to take. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, from a park district to increasing user fees appropriately, matching market rates on certain things. So we're going to identify those and vet those, and then bring those answers forward and say, if this is an option, it doesn't have to be the option, and maybe it's a mixture of several, but the plan identifies 21 different funding possibilities in there. And we're learning more every time we go to a conference or we hear from another city that's being successful increasing their budget, how they're doing that. One I heard from Atlanta recently is that they're using the sewer fund to pay for the cleaning of park restrooms. Loosely makes sense, but so we're going to explore that. So everything is worth exploring at this point to try to get us back up to a standard that we can be proud of in our parks. So as you go through, I won't read them all to you, but there's a bunch of good ones in there. You can stay going forward. So go ahead and go back in. So then there's a lot of lists, general recommendations. We're hearing access for all. One of the big deficiencies we have is in flat fields for soccer, flag football practices, things like that. We have a high deficiency there. And then we also struggle with the maintenance there with mowing. Mowing is one of the areas that has been cut back from the 2008 shortfall that we've been dealing with. So getting those spaces up to snuff and then adding more of them. So there's not 3 teams practicing on a little league field and each one gets a corner. So that's a big identification. And then shade is obviously a big thing too. We've got a lot of lovely trees, but in some of our new parks, that's a real challenge. All right, go ahead. So this is the big 5. Once again, another list. Kind of identifies and summarizes some of those 10 that we saw earlier. We can go forward. You'll see the recommendations. And then, so this breaks down those big 5s and gives some examples of each. And so we can kind of cruise through this. The second one identifies some mapping, and you'll see a lot of mapping you can scroll through these pretty quick, Abby. A lot of mapping about where current resources are, not just city resources, but county resources, the school district resources that we share. Again, trying to look at all things for a solution, even the private sector, if it's being provided there. If sports fields are provided from a private standpoint, maybe that shouldn't be the first priority for more public fields. And then you see some mapping there of our current levels of service and where there's some gaps, which as we grow, some of the challenges, just for your awareness, is residential construction tax is a very limited funding source where we get $1,000 per house. Right now, our largest fund is between $5 and $6 million. Just to give you an example, a 4-acre park in 2008 cost $4 million. So we're not going to build any significant parks with RCT. So once again, we need to look at alternative methods there. But so as we look at those holes in the service areas, we're going to need to be creative and also look at what we build is smart to build. A bunch of small parks, while they're great, is a challenge to maintain. There's not the best bang for the buck versus a larger space that could serve a regional need. So. And then in the plan, there's some concepts as we do build parks to have a little bit more unique feeling to the park so that if you're in a park, you could see in a picture and know that it's a little bit different than the park that might be 3 miles away. So has the same amenities, so to speak, but a little different layout, a little different feel. So there's different concepts in there. And then there's, if you move forward, that's a little side concept view, not necessarily a plan, just a concept. Go to the next one. This would be kind of refurbishing a current park. That is something that we can do with our RCT funding is improve current parks, which I think could develop some momentum for any of these funding sources. Like, well, if we could do that with this, maybe we can do more with that. So those are some things we'll be looking at. This is a few Raleigh Heights up in the North Valleys there. That's a park that could use some TLC and a little bit of updating. So go ahead. And this is Miguel Rivera Park, which we're already doing some significant improvements on. But that's just another concept example there. Keep moving. There's some theme elements in there, and while it's important, I think we have this taken care of. We can always look at updating, but we do have signage that identifies the parks pretty well. But as we move forward, you know, to be able to have something that's a little more updated and again brings a nice welcoming element to the park is something that the plan looks at as well. Number 3, I think this is a big priority for the city in general, but how the parks fit in within the river corridor is a big element in the plan. There's some conceptual things in here, but the city's currently working on an RFP for the entire river through our city limits. So, but we want to make sure that this plan is incorporated in that when it comes to the park elements that are brought on board. Skip through a little bit. I feel like I'm not earning my pay right here. As expanding additional programming, I think that both comes with that coming from the city standpoint, but then also looking at private partnerships as we look to activate parks. If there's something that somebody has a talent for in our community, making it easy for them to bring that into the facility or into the parks to activate the spaces, which we think helps also with some of the challenges we have with the negative use in parks, vandalism, things like that. If there's people in the parks doing a positive thing, usually that helps keep out some of the negative things that might happen in the same space. So keeping our parks busy, making it easy for people to do that instead of sending them through 6 months of approval processes and vetting and things like that. Like, let's give some things a try and try to get these parks busy. All right, and then one thing, as we do get to some solutions for funding, buying land is something that we can do now too, and having land set aside as a part of the planning process. And that's a huge part of having this plan adopted is as things come into the planning world in our city, that the plan is something that this plan can be referenced to make sure land is set aside for parks the same way it's set aside for schools and things like that. So that's something this plan will help identify and then be a tool for our planning group and our planning department to do there. So, all right, I think that's almost it. Yeah, so that's it for it's just a quick summary of the plan. There's, I think, 260 something pages in the full draft. So challenge is for you to read that in the next 3 to 4 weeks. But you can view that, and we invite the public to view that, doing simple word searches to identify if what's important to you is in the plan. It helps to track those things down. So if we can go to the next link up at the top. So under share your ideas, we have an online survey in English and Spanish that you can click on it if you don't mind in English. I'll take all of the please time. So it talks about where you live. And then as you go down, it's talking about what are some of the big considerations, you know, like out of the big 5, what would you like to prioritize? Is it new parks? Is it maintaining what we have? You know, if you live in the North Valley, you might feel like, hey, we need a new park before we can maintain it. So that's going to make sense to prioritize that effectively. So you can put in usually 2 or 3 on each one. This one might only be, you can put them all in, you just shuffle them around. And then the next one, the next question talks about some of those funding opportunities and just what's the appetite, kind of gives us an idea of what to approach first as an idea. You know, I know nobody wants to hear taxes, but increasing user fees, I could afford to pay a little more to use a ball field if it meant we could mow more or we could fertilize because during the high growth seasons. We're trying to understand the appetite for people on that. So that's why a lot of input here is a good thing for us. We're not necessarily saying we need new ideas for our space. We need to prioritize the ideas that we've already identified. Many of them, sadly, are the same things that were brought forward in 2008, the last time this plan was completed. So we still need flat fields. We still need swimming pools. So a lot of those things are still identified. So the next question, it kind of identifies even more closely, what are the things that you use in our parks? And based on that, do you feel like those needs are met? So you can pick up to 3 there. We know everybody wants all of them, but I think people picking their own space will let us know, especially with specialized things like BMX parks and, pickleball. No one likes pickleball, right, Mac? Just kidding. Splash pads, things like that. So that helps us identify these are the tops. It doesn't mean we won't want to do all of these things, but we're going to start somewhere and start taking bites of the elephant to try to play catch up here. So the next space is, as it comes down to the corridor and the Truckee River, it talks about those, pick 3 there. Go to the next one. And then what are the types of programs you'd like to see added or improved? And then really any other, that one says all of them. You can do all on that one. All right, first glitch there. Hopefully no one answered that yet. Number 7, and then different park sizes, what you need in your spaces and what we're lacking there. So, and then there's always room for others. So, and then on the next space, if we can go back to the link. So then there's also an idea wall where people can share suggestions and put it up as a Post-it note. So as you can see, some people have already done that and people can like it, comment on it. Hopefully it's positive feedback or constructive, or you just remain silent if you don't like an idea. We hope this doesn't get too toxic, but that wouldn't happen, right? That wouldn't happen. And then finally mapping it, you can drop a pin off, hey, this is a great space here. What if we built a park in this space, or like Sierra Vista Park came from a similar idea where there was a golf course going out of business right up where we live. And now it's developing into a nice little BMX course. So there's some specialty ideas there or trailhead ideas. This is the place to kind of pin that if there's a need. So something important in this, the rest is just contact information, but this is a plan I feel like we need to update every 5 years through assessment and then also identifying what we've accomplished. It's not something we can put on a shelf. And as the NAB, I'd ask you to pressure us to do that. Like, come give us reports regularly. Let us know the steps. That'll be one of my goals. And we'll definitely do it with council, but explaining to the NAB where we're at in the process of this plan and then what's going into the next 5 years. 15 years is too long to wait. It ends up being a 2-year, 3-year process. Whereas if we update this every 5 years and kind of just touch the rudder a little bit, we can keep the ship on course rather than have to make a huge correction. So with that, that's all I have for you. But just wanted to give you an update and let you know, we hope within a month and a half, we're taking this plan and going to work. So time for questions. All right.
I do have one question.
Sure.
Are we pursuing federal funds
Yes, where appropriate, absolutely. If
as much as possible? Because I think there's could be some resources there to take advantage of.
And that's one of the primary recommendations is if you talk to the consultancy group is that you identify someone who's not in an operational position to look at funding sources. And the same way a nonprofit goes out and brings in money 3 times their position, if they pay for themselves and bring money into the park system, that's a win. So that would be a part of that, as well as we're doing that as a city already, but I think it's more of a holistic approach rather than let's be strategic with parks and look for park specific funding opportunities.
And I just have one more question with respect to development. For example, in Ward 5, you have the Stan Mortensen build out that's getting the final plans in place. And I believe that's going to impact a lot of the open space and the trails. Do we have staff that make sure that when those development plans come in, that they are addressing, not overtaking the open space and the park areas and that kind of thing?
Well, I've been here about 4 months and we're working hard to make sure we have a voice in that planning session. We're getting ready to hire a park planner through ARPA funding that was given for that position that will be focused on making sure that our open space and our trails and our parks don't get stepped on as a part of the progress. So that it's worked into the plan instead of left out and then adjusted to it. So right now, I can't confidently say that that voice is at the table, but it will be.
That's all I have. Thank you very much for your presentation. You guys have any questions?
Thanks, Nathan. I think that website looks really nice and I think we got it like 30 minutes ago or else I would have went through the 400 pages or whatnot. it is. And then I think I also saw you on TV like 2 weeks ago. You were in the South Meadows area.
I was
At
at
the park?
Cyan Park, yeah.
Yeah.
talking
Okay.
a
So I
little
saw
bit
you
about-
there.
They don't tell you when they're actually recording. So then you end up using the tax word and then,
I saw you on the news.
Yeah.
And then like you were just saying, they just built the Avenida Delonda and Mayan apartment or building new homing
Right,
houses there.
yeah, on the corner.
And they were kind of required to continue the path because there was a walking path through that way. They kind of had to designate a whole little area.
And they put in the crosswalk too, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
put a crosswalk in and everything. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, and this should make sure those things continue to happen, that this is a part of the plan. You need to incorporate it.
I think one of the great things about like neighborhood Ward 5 is there is a lot of walking paths and trails through there. I was actually out on Las Brisas where they have like the reservoir dam at the bottom down by the park, Las
Uh-huh.
Brisas Park down there. And I also see Mac there as well all the time. So I was actually talking to somebody on the walk today and they were asking about the maintenance of like the I guess the path and then the brush. One thing with like all the water and moisture that we had this year, all the plants and everything just kind of like grew crazy.
Right,
And so a lot of the paths have kind of like become these tunnels or,
right. Yeah.
And so they were just asking, so I just thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, I think what also can be helpful is I've already whined about what our current staffing level is as community members see problems, it's a lot of trails, like you said. So if you can help us by using Reno Direct and reporting a problem, that really helps us get out there. So we don't spend time exploring and we spend time doing the work. So if that's something that you can share with the folks you hear that with, is put in a ticket with Reno Direct, they direct it to parks. If they can put in a picture, even better, then we can actually see what they're seeing. So, because it is a reality, a lot of people don't know we have the landscape maintenance districts that we oversee along with a lot of the right of way in the city. Some of that's transitioning, but so there's a lot to do, and the priority we want to maintain is the parks first, and we're struggling enough there. So if we can get like focused, this is where the area of need is, that's really, really helpful. So thanks for sharing that with me, and yeah, we'll get people out there as soon as we can.
I remember they came along that trail like a year or two ago and they had this like little vehicle that had like almost like chainsaws on the
Yeah.
side of it. And they
Cuts
just
it
like
back.
mowed down the whole side of like the trails
Right?
to keep it back. And so that was kind of cool.
Yes.
Maybe in the future.
Maybe we'll get Mac one of those and Mac can-
Thank you.
Nathan, first of all, just a couple of comments.
Sure.
I think this is a hugely important thing to the whole city. I've seen so many statistics from around the country about the importance of green and trees and that kind of areas to the quality of life. So I'm very supportive of this in general. A couple of questions I did have. You said that this plan came as the result of community input or from the public.
Yes.
So how did that differ from doing the survey that you just showed? That's like now, is it like similar, or was that a whole different kind of preparation for the plan?
Well, so as a part of the preparation of the plan, we want to get the public's input, as we talked about that three-legged stool, to say, we need these things. And now that we've identified those things, how do we want to put those in order? How do we want to prioritize those things that were identified? So that's the difference in the initial survey, which is almost 2 years old now, to what we're asking for as a part of this, is that we've identified where we feel like there's a shortfall based on a need, based on national standards. And here's what we're suggesting. Does that fit what the public recognizes is still the need and would prioritize? So that's why we're trying to get as wide of a base of input from all of the wards to just try to verify that for us.
Okay, I understand. I'm very disappointed that 2 years ago we had your predecessor was standing there and said more or less the same things about the staffing. So the ratios haven't changed much at all in the last 2 years?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not since even, I mean, it's a big step for us to get a planner. Because part of the challenge is bandwidth for even our management level staff to make sure that we're both supervising operation and then also looking to the future, and in our parks division, being able to replace slides before they go out, inspect things before they go out. Because when a slide breaks, you have to get a mold done, and it could take 6 to 8 months to get that slide replaced. So if we can start to identify those things early through different methods, that would be a huge way to maintain all that. So there's ways we can be smart and do better. But the reality is nothing got cheaper in the last 15 to 17 years.
That's for sure.
And we have half of what we had then. So it's something we need to address.
Just a couple questions about the financial side. When council went through their several weeks of budget planning, and forgive me, I didn't see it all, but were you there asking for your particular budget for your area?
I got here a little bit late. I got here in March, so it was mostly that ship had sailed, but there was some additional funding brought in this year for park maintenance. We also got an additional park ranger, which I think is a big part of the solution. They're in our parks. They can inspect playgrounds. They can help make sure positive behavior is occurring so that we don't spend as much time repairing what's damaged. Instead, we can, again, make positive use of the space possible. So we did get some steps this year, and we are going to keep what like I said, we're going to bring solutions. We're currently living in a solution, which is to not fund it the way we maybe should based on national standards, but we need to bring those opportunities forward so decisions can get made. So I'll be here this year, that's for sure. And we'll be banging that drum early in the process. And this is good timing as we go into that budget process, that if we can start taking incremental steps over the next 1, 2, 3 years, we can make incremental improvement until we get to a place that we feel good about where we're at. So to go back to that, there was a little bit of a space between when my predecessor left in, I think, November to when I started in March, and people filled in, but the expertise probably wasn't there at that point.
Okay. Recently in the news, there was talking about the city has, I think, put $1.5 million towards the river. Is that part of this plan as well, or is that a completely separate bunch of money? Because a lot of it is ARPA, right?
Yes,
That's sort of spent.
I think it's almost exclusively ARPA, but there is a few things happening along the river as a part of that, including trail improvements, which will be Band-Aid improvements. So we're having some significant erosion issues in different spaces that we need to have long-term solutions for. But in the short term, we have some money to fix root issues that's pushing the path up and causing hazards. So that'll be occurring along with a Truckee River Master Plan that will incorporate, as I said, everything from the trail to business access to make sure that people can get down to the river and use that as a corridor of entertainment, transportation, and then also business. So
in terms of the financing, and I'll be quick, I'm sorry, just a few things while I've got Nathan here. Have you looked at the redevelopment agencies 1 and 2 for funding towards parks?
I think there's some possibilities there. And that we actually talked about it today with Eric Edelstein.
Good.
To see
Excellent.
where does it fit? There's
Yeah.
money. Let's make sure we get the best bang for the buck. And the parks that are along the river, a lot of those would fit into that, and maybe additional spaces that make sense for festivals and things like that. So yes, we're going to leave no stone unturned. And as you have ideas that we didn't even see the stone, let us know. We'll flip it over.
Well, downtown needs much more. There's too much concrete there.
Sure.
And we've got our own redevelopment district. And there's going to, when the monies finally start to accrue from the taxes, the increment, you bet the downtown people are going to want to speak up and say that we want a lot of green. I've heard that so many times. We need more, because I mean, Naomi Dura came there when they were planting trees on where the dog park is. Do you know that downtown?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's great. Did you see how excited we were about 8 trees? I mean,
Yes.
we need so much more there. There's so much blight. There's empty parking
Sure.
lots. Now, so is eminent domain ever going to be used when you're talking about buying land? Because there's a lot of complaints about people sitting on this stuff for decades.
Sure.
And it's just, there's so much that could be done.
Right. Well, I have a leisure degree, so I can't really speak to the legality of it, but I think
Redevelopment districts can do that. They can use that.
I would hope so.
They
I
can.
hope that's the point. Yeah, but I think as we look for those opportunities, if it's blighted spaces, a lot of success has been found with dog parks and just pocket parks where they're not very expensive to build and in the short term really can help drive up values in a neighborhood. So I think we would be open to those types of things as long as we can maintain them appropriately. That's stuff we should look at.
Okay, I'll just leave it there, but thank you for coming. And I'm going to send out this link to as many social media groups in downtown that we have. I want people to know this.
Yeah,
And so
please do.
please come back. Let
Yeah.
us know what we can do to help you make your case.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
Do we have any comments from anyone on Zoom? Abigail?
No one on Zoom, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yes, of course. Come to the podium.
Just two quick little things that I wanted to throw my.
Oh,
2
please
cents
state your
in.
name for the record.
Carly Borchard for the record. Thank you. Two things that I wanted to share with you real quick, if you don't mind, Nathan, is number one of the things that we experienced with several developments over the past couple of years, knowing that you've just been here 4 months, just for your own knowledge and maybe moving forward, was we were requiring those developers to actually install a park and have the HOAs maintain it. So that is something that can be done and has been done, and I think is very beneficial. I just wanted to put that in your back pocket. And then secondly is Washoe County is really good at it, not so much City of Reno, but Adopt a Park is extremely beneficial, really for small communities. I know out in Verdi, we are Washoe County, so Washoe County actually does it. But for many years, they put on like once a month, we would go, and it was more like a gathering of neighbors that we'd clean up and maintain the parks. So it's a great way for you guys to get some hands-on and, allow the community to get involved too. Thanks.
Thanks, Carly. Okay, let's backtrack if we could. Go back to B1. If we could have the police department's quarterly report.
Did Abby tell you guys I was at the range? So it was very hot, in case anyone was wondering. I'll try to go through the boring stuff quickly, and then Mr. Cecil had some questions that I think I have answers to some of, and then I wasn't able to get everything because of the short notice, but I can tell you what I think.
I'm sorry, what is your name, sir?
Sorry, it's Brian Dye. I'm a lieutenant with Reno PD. And looking at the fun stuff first, looking at the stats, the top three were destruction of property, stolen vehicles, and then crimes against persons. And I cross-referenced that against kind of the whole city, not just this specific ward. And that's kind of in line with that. But I think GTAs, which is stolen vehicles, that's our Grand Theft Auto, that kind of goes in line with that too, a lot of places. And when I looked at the destruction of property, most of the reports I read had it was either random, it was kind of like a intoxicated person making a bad decision, or some things it seems rooted in like a mental health thing where they're just having an episode and then they kind of lash out and then property bears the brunt of it. Sometimes it is solved and we get an arrest, and other times we don't. And then with the crimes against persons, they split it. So the way I understand it, aggravated, which is the top number, that's either with a weapon or with like a more significant injury. And then the simple assault, that could be, we didn't even touch and I just like threatened you, or, I pushed you or punched you and there was just very, very minimal injury. And a lot of that, again, because we have that little chunk of downtown, a lot of that stuff kind of is centered down there. It doesn't happen so much as we move further west. And again, I would say alcohol, mental health issues, and some of our transient population is generally responsible for a majority of that stuff. It's not that at 3 a.m. on a Friday night, Saturday morning, normal people aren't fueled up and making bad decisions, but during the day when most normal people would be patronizing downtown, it kind of doesn't really impact them the same way it does other groups. As far as the vehicle stuff, I've seen where people, a lot of times it seems like delivery drivers and not necessarily like UPS, but people, like you deliver parts or you blood, parcels, things like that. Like they leave their car running or they leave the keys in it and they run out real quick and then run back. And you would think not to do that, but I think they do it so frequently, they kind of get complacent and then that car goes away. I also see a lot of stuff where it goes to like a parking lot or things like that. Sometimes people lose their keys. I've seen that. They go inside a casino, drinks or not, I don't know, probably drinks, but they drop their keys and you have a key fob. So I pick that up. I walk out to parking lots and I just push the button until I find your car and I have your car. You're inside for several hours and you don't even know by the time we get there. And a lot of times they just kind of drive them almost for like a week or something like that. It's like they run out of gas and then they just leave it and go get another one. So if you're careful with your keys, you don't leave it unlocked. If you do store it in your residence, don't, like some people leave the key in the cup holder and then park it in the garage, but your garage door is very easy. And if you're doing yard work or you walk away, I can walk up and there's your car kind of thing. So just we remind everybody to be cautious with key placement, key retention, and then not leaving your car unlocked. That will probably benefit a little bit of that. And anybody have any questions about the fun stuff? Then I have your specifics later that I'll get to. Yes, sir. Oh, okay. And then Mr. Cecil had,
Oh, can I just ask a couple? I think I asked this before, but I wasn't sure about the answer. These statistics, are these actual arrests or are they calls?
these are reports.
They're reports. Okay,
Yes.
So they may not result in arrest, but they are
So if we,
something where you've been assigned to go to something.
yes, and so
happening.
we do it, we have it differently by district, not by ward is the way we have it. So we, in Reno for police, we have 3 districts, north, central, south. There's not like, it's a very jagged line all across the board. But generally you guys would have some central and then some north. But over the last month of July, which they just posted these, there were 17,120 calls. And then if we go Reno calls north, it was just under 5,000. And then central was about the same, 4,800. And then south had 6,500. So we get a lot of calls. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a crime. A lot of times this could be something as simple as, you know, I saw someone texting while driving, and that's a call. I saw
Okay.
someone sleeping on a sidewalk. That's a call. And so it doesn't necessarily generate like a crime report, but we get, this is about average for us. 15,000, about 18, 19,000 is kind of a normal month for us. Tends to uptick in the summer. And then looks like of those calls, we dispatched about 6,800 of them. And then officer initiated, that'd be like a traffic stop, a subject stop, a business check, area check. Maybe someone's asking us for directions, could be something really simple like that, but that's an additional 5,693. So 5,700. So it's a lot for not very many people. And we, I've been on since 2003, and there was about, I think 70 or 80 more cops when I got hired than there are today. And our population has almost doubled and our geographic responsibility has done about the same. So it's pretty significant. And I remember the older guys when I was new said they remember the McCarran Loop and making jokes about what a waste of time that was because we'd never go beyond that. And now it's like barely the middle of town. So for Mr. Cecil, asked about the downtown patrols. So we don't really have specifically foot patrols. We've assigned other units. So on Mondays, we have the horses. So the guys on the horses go downtown and they are down there from about, it says 10 to 6. And I don't know if they're there exclusively that entire time, if it's like little pockets like these two. And then a different unit or community action, which does a lot of like the river patrols, clean and safe, those kinds of things. They work down there on Tuesdays, and it looks like they run from about 10 to 2. So they get assigned to that section. Traffic goes down there on Wednesdays, and it looks like they assign it out in 2-hour blocks, and it could be one person or 2. And they have either a big diesel truck that does like commercial enforcement, or that's our motorcycles. So it's kind of like a variable approach. So some horse, some foot patrol, some traffic enforcement, and then we have a team that's they were designed specifically to address crime trends, and they work down in little blocks on Friday and Saturday. And I didn't see the times for that, but they did have some stats of the results, which might address some of your questions. And I have, sorry, it'll take me a second to find these. So traffic. Let's see, I'll just give you the whole June total if that works instead of the week by week, because that's boring. Looks like we did 12 citations, 19 warnings, and then 75 citizen contacts, and then 15 other. I have no idea what that is, but so they're doing some enforcement down there, some warnings, and then probably like the hails of, hey, where's this or where's that, or directions, or let me ask you a question, because people like we're like a little beacon. Everyone wants to run up to us and ask us things. For July, traffic had 31 citations, so almost triple, 16 warnings. So we weren't as forgiving. Looks like 51 citizen contacts and then 5 other. So they kind of chopped it a little bit differently. And then that unit, the specialty problem solving unit that gets assigned down there. It looks like they work Thursdays and Fridays, and I'm sorry, I don't have the times. I just have like spreadsheets that they had for us. But it looks like we had 2 traffic citations 1 week, because the data only goes to July 27th is when it begins. And then the next week, which was this week or this last week, Thursday, Friday, they wrote 2, 1 each day. Looks like 14 warnings at the end of July, 4 warnings last week. 4 citations this week for a misdemeanor citation. They haven't done it yet this week, but last week, 4 arrests, 4 misdemeanors, 2 felony arrests. Looks like 8 citizen contacts last week. And then in July. And then last week, they did 24 citizen contacts. So kind of, I don't know what the mission parameters are as far as, traffic is going to do traffic enforcement. The horses, I think, are more like a presence. And then like kind of I don't know, like kids love horses. They're really big. Some of them are really big. I don't know if you guys have seen them. But a lot of people like horses, or they scare the people that don't like horses. So it could be pro or con. Then the other guys, the problem solving team is in like a regular patrol car. So I think CAO group, which is Tuesdays, are the only people on foot patrol. Let me see how I'm doing with your list. I don't know that there's any specific route. We have pretty loose parameters on this. It was simply be downtown and engage downtown. Whether that be, going there and hammer everybody for jaywalking, things like that, or like the softer approach, I think is more horses, is kind of like a PR kind of thing. The advantage over car patrols, if you're on foot, you're more interactive and approachable to the public. If you're just driving, you're kind of like you're a presence, but it's not the same kind of personal interaction that I think normal people like. I would say normal people is in non-criminal. Criminals don't really like us and don't want to see us walking around or in a car or on a horse or on a motorcycle. And then as far as that's all the information I have on that, because I just got these spreadsheets off our kind of something I have access to that no one else does. Well, not no one else, but
Yeah, it's not easily accessible. I understand that. And thank you
Yes.
for bringing that. And I appreciate the answers. All of those reasons I asked those was because when Chief Nance was at the budget meetings a few months ago, there was a lot of talk about having foot patrols, and we were very excited downtown about that. I mean, we're a great believer in that. We want to make it a neighborhood, and that's a start to it, to get to know, who are the RPD officers that are there, welcome them in there.
Yeah.
And make them feel comfortable and make that the norm.
And the way I understand that is the chief, I think they allotted some additional positions into the upcoming academy,
correct.
or they either just started or is about to start. And then sadly, you can't go to a temp agency and get a cop. We take about a year to make, from academy to the training phase to like buy themselves in a car. It takes about a year. And so I think probably about this time next year, we'll realize those bodies on a team. And I don't know how that's going to be deployed. We previously had this, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And they worked Wednesday through Saturday, and it was like a day shift thing. And they just kind of like walked up and down. But they were kind of like a PR thing, not an enforcement thing. And I think a lot of people were upset about that because there was a lot of people that probably could have used a little bit of enforcement for drinking and riding bikes on the sidewalks and things like that, that I think upset a lot of the people that live downtown or patronize downtown frequently. So I don't know what that'll be. They could also chop it and say, here's, 2 people per day kind of thing, or vary hours. And I don't know what that's going to look like.
Okay, well, thank you. That's good to know that there's a time lag there, but I think there's a lot of excitement about that. We had a survey at the Montage, which has about 400 residents, and the number one far and away big issue for the residents there was safety on the streets. Because unlike other areas, everybody walks downtown.
Yes.
So they're out there, and sometimes at night and in the winter in the dark. So that kind of presence and that visible presence, I think you'll find a very supportive base. If they weren't before, I think they will be very supportive now of that kind of community policing.
We do have still have the mountain bike guys, the downtown enforcement team that works.
That's a good
in
thing
the-
too, yeah.
What do we call it now? BID. It was sad when I did that a long time ago, and now I think
BID.
it's BID. And so they've been, they had some injured people on in previous shift rotations. Every 6 months we switch. And so they got some people that are kind of younger go-getter cops and a younger go-getter sergeant. And so they've been doing a lot of operations. I only overlap with them on Wednesday, but generally when I see that guy, he's like, hey, just so you know, we're out doing this, this, and this. And they're getting to work. They're not messing around. They're not all broken. They're trying to make it better downtown. They're aggressive guys that want to put up numbers and arrests. So I think that'll benefit everybody.
If you indulge me, I just have one more question and I'll finish up. A couple of weeks ago, we were lucky enough to be invited by our council member to the ball game that night, Reno Aces, and it was great. But then when I realized we also had the Wing Festival going on at the same time in the afternoon. I went to both of them, by the way, and the food was great at both of them. But also then later on, there was, what is it called? Base Camp, the electric dance music, 3 stages over at Wingfield. And all 3 of these things were happening within like a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour period. Aren't you guys stretched too much for that? I mean, who consults with you? How much thought do they give into it? And when do you say, no, we can't handle these
Well, no one ever
extra
tells
events?
anyone no. Generally what I see, they try to spread out the overtime as much as they can. We do have a contract that requires a 30-day advance notice before you can do it. So like special events that goes through like the vetting process and all those things, we have some notice. This was actually, I think, the second time in 20 years I didn't have to work Hot August nights. I was off those days and I'm deemed non-essential personnel. It doesn't matter if I'm down there walking. But a lot of people get force hired. A lot of people, volunteer to work it, or a lot of people get deployed there. Like the bike guys I was talking about, they're working the events almost exclusively. And it's kind of from basically like April to October, they're down doing all that stuff. There is a little bit of burnout to manage, but I think we've also kind of scaled back a lot of the things, and we've been a lot smarter in how we permit the drinking. So a lot of times we didn't used to have beer gardens, and so it was kind of like a free for all, and it was a mess. And I think we sent some of our special event planners to schools and other municipalities, and they got a lot smarter. And so now we have a lot of like beer gardens and things like that. There's bracelets, there's event specific cups. So now I know, did you get this at the little liquor store and you shouldn't be drinking it? Or is this like an event sanctioned thing? So we've just been better, which takes less staff. I also feel a lot of the events through the regulatory process, we've not allowed some of the advertising to the people that are going to generate problems. So they've been smarter kind of in other aspects as well. But I haven't had to work them, so I'm pretty happy about that. But Hot August Nights is like a big one. Street Vibes is a big one. The crawls are big ones. I don't know who will tell you they like the crawls. We all hate them. It's a nightmare. And,
Likewise.
anyone, yeah, if you're downtown, but a lot of people are like, it's not that bad. Well, they go home at 10 or 11 at night, and that's about when it starts. And so about 3, 4 a.m., no good happens, and we all hate them.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you
No,
might get someone above my rank to come lie to you, but I won't.
Okay. No. Just a final comment. Was that range at Parr Boulevard? Is that the range?
Yes, so it's at the
Yeah.
RPSTC, which is the regional training center. So
I thought it was there because my wife and I actually went there one time and got a wonderful but very eye-opening experience about what it's like to have like somebody on the street and then looking like they're going to jump up at you or come around a corner or stuff like that.
did you do a Citizens Police Academy?
Yeah, I know,
like
not
the
exactly. It
little
was a
paint
one-day
bullet
thing,
guns?
for the interfaith thing arranged by Rajan Zed.
Okay.
But they gave us, the paint gun and
Mhm.
that, and we didn't see what happened before we went out there, and it gives you a new appreciation for the stress of that.
Yeah, we've been trying to, that's a wonderful educational tool for the
Yeah.
public because everyone, we call it Monday morning quarterbacking, but you watch a body cam or you watch a YouTube video and you're like, why didn't you just do this? Or why didn't you just do that? And it's like, until you walk through that and you walk into a completely unknown scenario and then it happens, and you have a fraction of a second to react. And I've seen videos where they get some, faith-based community groups or very anti-police groups, and they put them through and they kill everybody. Like they shoot everyone. They shot one guy, he was like holding a box, put the box down. He's like, okay. And he throws it and they shoot him.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you doing? You just killed that guy. You're going to prison. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, he wouldn't listen. And it's like, so you shot him? Like
Yeah.
it was very eye-opening for a lot of the people to see
Yeah,
that.
they
And I
took
think
it-
we should do it more often.
Took it very seriously, but anyway, but thank you for
Yeah,
all
that's a
that
great
you
program.
and your colleagues do. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions?
I just had one question.
Yes.
You do have a bike patrol, right? That you mentioned it's.
We
It's
do.
mountain
So
bikes?
they're not exclusively on bikes. So bikes is an option of deployment. And then they have cars. They can go get an unmarked car. I mean, they can do a bunch of different things. And so like if we have a crime trend downtown with let's say people stealing at a liquor store, they'll set up on that store. And like we have some city cameras. They're not always beneficial, but if we can, we employ them and we'll put someone in there, they watch, and then we kind of like have people around the corner. We'll do plain clothes. We do a lot of varying plans just to kind of address whatever trend we can. And it used to be a long time ago, it was like mostly drug stuff and fighting, but I think they've evolved a little bit. Sometimes people are pawning things. So if I break into a house and I steal a bunch of gold necklaces, there's no serial number. There's no way to tell if it's stolen or not. But if I show up to the pawn shop once a week and dump 50 necklaces, I'm probably up to no good.
Well, the pawn shops are reporting you, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They keep stuff and then they'll notify it, and they work with some of our
burglary
detective
units.
units. Yeah, it's usually burglary or misdemeanor crimes, depending on the value. But yeah,
One last question. Do you guys have courtesy citations? When you say warnings?
courtesy. I haven't written a ticket in so long, I wouldn't know. But I remember a long time ago, you could check the box that was like warning, and then it wouldn't trigger the fine things.
So
but
when I was a
couldn't
police
tell you.
officer, you actually had regular citations and you had courtesy citations. So you got the accountability for your stop
Mm.
and what the stop was for, but it wasn't impactful in the pocketbook.
We
so to
have,
speak.
it's been, I don't know, probably 09, 08 was the last time I probably wrote one. Because generally if I pulled you over, you're going to jail. It's because it was just a different kind of hunting
Right.
strategy. But I think there was like a little, I remember up on the top, it was like citation warning, and you can like click one. But I felt like if I was going to write a ticket, not a warning. But
Exactly.
we didn't have, other places have had where, hey, how do I know you really stopped that guy? You just didn't make stuff up, because a long time ago,
Yeah.
people might have done that.
Well, I
for
worked in a
photos.
real affluent community, Pleasanton, California.
Oh,
So,
yeah. They wanted probably the warnings then, and the courtesy stuff.
well, thank you for your work. We
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
We are strong proponents of law enforcement. So, Mac, you had something?
Got a question for you.
Yes.
Mac Rossi for the record.
You want
I'll
to?
sign it later. And one is I'd like to make the comment that I'm glad to see that the ambassador program is now going to 24 hours a day, which I think is going to be a great help. But my question is, and being with the parks, when and if you do give a citation to a homeless person, do you ever get any follow-up on it, whether they appeared in court or whether it was a waste of time to give the citation because they never show up anyway?
Here, we'll switch. So we have kind of two options. So we have, if it happens at a park, they call it community court. And so it's a little bit different, and it's specific to the homeless population or people that are unable to pay the fines. So instead of going through the regular criminal process, it kind of goes through like a little civil thing, and they generally will like, their fine would be like community service or things like that. Hey, you got to go pick up some trash. You got to do this. You got to do certain hours for these kinds of things. And so instead of, a financial impact, it's a, give back impact. The unit that works on Tuesdays, the downtown, the CAO or community affairs, they're the ones that kind of run that program. And I think our mountain bike guys would utilize that as well. But I couldn't I can ask, and I can probably send Abby, if I send you stats, do we have emails? And I can make a note and I'll ask and I'll see what the results of that stuff is.
If they don't show up, that's what I'm.
Well, so if they don't show up, then it does turn criminal, because then it still has, so then the judge is basically saying it's a failure to appear or contempt of court kind of thing. They still can be held accountable by the courts if they don't satisfy their obligations. And even if, let's say I was homeless and I was at a park and I did whatever dumb thing I wasn't supposed to do, and then I had the court and I'm like, yeah, I'll go, no problem. I'll do my community service. Even if I get assigned it and then I don't complete it, that's still its own contempt of court kind of, or failure to comply kind of thing is what they do. So then they'll get a criminal warrant. Let me write that down. I'll forget otherwise.
Do we have any other questions from the audience or Zoom? Okay.
Mr. Chair, could I just address a question to our
Yes.
liaison? Abby, could we have that police, the statistics report electronically too, please?
Yes, of course. I'll send it over.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, gentlemen?
Quick question.
Yes.
I was just wondering about Hot August Nights, how that went. And then you hear about street race. You used to hear about street racing like a lot, and I haven't heard anything about that recently. If that's still happening or if that's done.
It's hard to say because I am off Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So a lot of what I hear about is like the next day or too late. I think the first probably 2 years we dealt with it a lot. And even on the SWAT side of the house, we would run, like we'd have guys in cars kind of things just in case things go bad. We saw a lot in like Vegas and California, Bay Area. They would take over like blocks. And that only happened here one time. I think it was last summer at Lakeside and McCarran. They had it for about an hour. And usually Ward 2 asks all this stuff. But I haven't seen the same problem. I live down off of Wilbur May, so I hear it once in a while, but not like I used to. And so I will ask, and I'll get that to Abby too, because I know they're tracking it and they're doing like stats and things. But that what I call them, the specialty problem solving unit, they kind of work. They work like 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. or something like that, and they work Wednesday through Saturday night. So they're there for all that stuff, and so they'll address crime trends in addition to street racing, things like that. And I know they've been posting stats, but again, I just don't see those guys very often.
Maybe tires just got too expensive or
A lot. Well, here's a problem. A lot of those guys have like a YouTube channel
Yeah.
and they get sponsorship. So us towing their car or taking them to jail, like that's more views and more hits, and then they get more money from advertising. So it's really kind of a problem, like well beyond simply going out there with a bunch of cops and like arresting someone and towing a car. Like it's, a lot of things have to happen. And they did change the law to where I think they call it trick racing or trick driving or something like that. And it is a gross misdemeanor. And so it used to be a misdemeanor, which kind of limited us in a lot of our deployment tactics, because you can't,
chase.
crash into a car, you
Yeah.
can't chase them. Like a lot of things are limited because it's just a low level misdemeanor traffic offense. And since they made it a gross misdemeanor, it helps us a lot with the legal strength, I would say, to go do those kind of tactics, because they all run and then we don't generally chase them.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to endanger the public. You got this one dumb guy in his car and you have 60 people over here. We don't want to endanger them for the sake of taking them to jail for driving stuff.
Turns into a high-speed chase through town.
Yeah. And that's just not,
Yeah.
with legality aside, it's just not smart to endanger the public. And now 3 a.m. on the connector, there's not really a lot of people endangered but us and them. And we kind of assume a lot of risk in our profession anyway. So we'll run them there, but downtown or some of the other places, it's just not. If they aim toward Virginia, that's a bad idea. They're going out or away or on a freeway. A little bit more leeway.
Yeah. Well, thank
I'll
you.
ask about that, and I'll get all that stuff to Abby so she can get it out to you guys.
Appreciate it.
Okay, moving on. We'll go to section B3, update, discussion, and possible recommendations on the Ward 5 community project. Did you give it any more thought, Gary or Bryce?
You've got it all ready to go, right? We know
Yeah.
exactly what we're doing. Okay, Jana Moyer, Community Liaison. For the record, let's see if this clicker works. Oh, it does. Great. Okay, so we had a little recess in July with the baseball game. I hope everyone had a great time. Just want to remind everyone briefly, this was the design thinking process we decided to use. And the reason why we wanted to go this route was to make sure that whatever project idea we come up with is going to meet a need in the community. Because I know oftentimes we're given a pot of money and it's like, well, the question is, I have $5,000, what can I do with it? But we want to be really strategic, especially after hearing from Grant Denton about the way sometimes solutions can cause other issues, and about making sure that we choose a problem that's really important in our community. And then we walk through these steps to ensure that the action we take truly addresses the issue. And so these were some of the problems that we discussed and that were identified by the NAB members in our last meeting. And they're all sort of phrased as like problems and issues. I'm going to jump ahead a couple slides and then we're going to come back to this. So really our goal for today is to choose like a broad problem. And so the recommended motion here is going to be motion to select safety in downtown as the issue we want to address. And then as we move forward in September, what we'll do is we'll look at, okay, we've got this big broad issue. Now, how can we narrow that down and really kind of scope our problem and think about defining the problem? And then part of that will be looking to what nonprofits or organizations, community groups are already working to solve this, and how can we work in conjunction with what they're already doing. We know we're not going to solve homelessness or public safety with $5,000, but we can choose one of those issues to address, and then we can look at ways that we can work with people who are already in that area to be strategic and put our funds and our efforts into a solution that's really going to meet the need. So with that, I'd like to just kind of open it up for discussion. These were the problems that were identified at the last meeting. Of course, if you have other ideas that you've come up with since then, other needs or problems that have surfaced since that last meeting, those are definitely up for discussion. But the goal for today, if we feel ready to do so, would be to just choose one broad issue or problem, and then we'll work towards defining and narrowing that down. And Abby and I can reach out to organizations in the community, along with you all, of course, doing that, to kind of figure out who's already involved in those spaces.
So I guess my first question is like, so if there's $5,000 or so. So I picked my 3 that I would choose from, I guess. And parts of downtown are excessively hot and lack adequate shade. So you buy, I don't know, trees or something like that. But I remember hearing that the city just bought 40 trees, and that's like all the money they had for that. So I'm just wondering, with $5,000, how much we can actually do. And I guess downtown feels unsafe, which is definitely true. But how do you solve that with 5,000? Or is it we're putting them into lighting things up, or I don't know how we go about that. So is there any ideas like to further expand on these, really? Or is that the next step, I guess?
Yeah, so exactly. That would be the next step. So really in this phase, we've sort of empathized and heard from constituents in the area, what are the issues? And that's really where this list came from. And what we would want to do is sort of choose a broad topic. We're not going to be able to solve these, right? But we can have an impact in a certain area. And like Carly brought up last time, there are often matching funds available, or, there may be a nonprofit that's working on some kind of safety project that just needs a little bit of extra funding and some volunteers. So really the idea is just to choose a broad issue that we really care about and want to address. And then we'll work through the details of what does that look like as we move forward. I think at this juncture, the most important thing is to focus on what's an issue that really matters to you all and to the community that you're really representing on this board.
Well, most of these came from downtown perspective because of this survey that we
Yeah.
did. So I had more ability to do that. But I was hoping there'd be some other ideas as well, because I mean, I'm very open to, they're all good, I think, in their own way. I think the other thing to remember is there's only 4 of us right now. So let's not bite off more than we can chew. So that link to existing organizations that we think meet these problems, you know, is almost, Jana, feels like it needs to be hand in hand with us before we decide which problem. Because I think to your point, Bryce, I mean, downtown feels unsafe. It's a statement, and it's true that, you know, does that mean we work with the DRP, Downtown Reno Partnership, or things like that? I'm not sure. I've gone around and around with this so many times. So I don't have a particular, I think they're all very, very worthwhile. So I'm looking for some tiebreakers here, guys.
I see you could take 2 of these and put them together. Lack of community art and the excessively hot and lack adequate shade. I remember years ago going on Highway 5, going down to LA, going over the Grapevine, the hill. They had an art project that they were umbrellas, colored umbrellas, and they put them all over the side of this hill. And they were there for like 6 months. It was just a display. But I'm thinking you could take canopies, colorful canopies. And I don't know that they'd be all that expensive. Maybe I'm getting way ahead of the cart, but that's what I'm thinking. You could kill 2 birds with 1 stone in that kind of effort, where you're adding art downtown and also providing shade at the same time. Just a thought.
I think there's a street in Japan that the whole alley, or maybe it was Italy or somewhere, that the whole street is like covered in umbrellas, and it is really cool. But I think when you get the city involved and the actual structural stuff of it, you're looking at $400,000, not $5,000. So getting that actually done is really the hard part. I mean, because it would be great to cover the train tracks in some kind of shade structure, the train cover that and shade that all. I mean, I know that the trees were planted, and maybe in 20 years that those trees will be grown up and they'll provide a lot of shade and they'll be nice. So I just, yeah, it's.
The one that I thought about most actually was the substance abuse. It's not a part of my personal experience, although my daughter was an addict during the opioid crisis. So that was me personally. But just the other day, walking downtown around the train tracks, I walked my dog, and I came across a young woman, flat on her face on the sidewalk. And that's happened before. And I tromped past her as loud as I could. And she didn't move. She didn't budge. I couldn't see that she was breathing at all. And I didn't have my phone with me. So I went back with the dog, and the dog started sniffing her. And suddenly she just had a spasm. And I got somebody out eventually. The ambassadors helped to get somebody there, but I couldn't keep her there. She walked away. And I would tell you, I've seen that a lot of times downtown. When you hear that that Downtown Reno Partnership is giving the EpiPens to all of the ambassadors down there, there's a reason for that. That's not getting at the root of the problem, and we don't have enough money, nor do the police or anybody else have enough staff to do that. But at least they're saving lives. I don't know how many they have, but we've got a real problem downtown with that. And if there's one thing and this could have been my granddaughter, she was that young, and I don't know where she went or what was going to happen, but she definitely was coming out of some kind of high or some kind of low or something. But I see that more often than I can tell you. I think it's a real human, difficult problem.
Were you speaking of Narcan?
Yeah.
Yeah, not epinephrine.
You know what? I need to check that. All I know is that there's something the ambassadors carry.
It's
and,
a Narcan.
And they have saved like about a dozen lives in the last year with that and helped people out. So I don't know, that's just something that has come floated to the top of my list.
I think that one probably actually is feasible. I mean, you can buy some of those and make sure that they all do have them or whatnot.
Yeah, we could, I mean, we have a good relationship with the Downtown Reno Partnership, and they're doing very good things downtown. As I think Max said, they also go out at night now. And I mean, I'm not out at night, but I'm sure I hear and I see sometimes a lot going on. So I mean, that is I think there's something we could piggyback onto. However, maybe we can put an educational element in there too, something, and see where that goes from there. But that one would be a fairly straightforward one to do. And I think it would really help.
And then like the other one, the need for more trust between community members and police officers. I think that is something that can be done as well, because we could have like ice cream social kind of things, and downtown meet and greets or whatnot. So that's something that's definitely feasible as well.
Yeah, I think from what we just heard, though, that it's going to be a while before. I think the folks downtown were thinking of more the ones that would be community officers that weren't assigned all over the place, but that was their beat. And so that you would want to get to know them and feel comfortable, and also get to know the people who are in trouble there as well, and some of the homeless and things like that. So I think that's something for the future, but from what he said, I don't think there's going to be that kind of policing until people come through the academy. I did not know that. None of us did. We thought it was going to start pretty quickly. So I think that one I think is not ripe yet.
And then homelessness, rising number of people living in the vehicles. I mean, I don't know how you go about that. You go and give them a care package and get them a room for a night. It doesn't.
I think Carly brought that up originally. Maybe she could expound on that if she's here. I can't see.
Come on up, Carly.
Jenna, are we ideating well enough here?
You're way into
I'm glad. I'm really glad, because I love ideating.
Carly Borchard for the record. Yeah, so that was the idea, one of the ideas that we had coming into the Washoe County Leadership Academy that we had all voted on and wanted to pursue. But unfortunately, the time frame in which we were given for the academy didn't allow us to pursue it. So we ended up pursuing something different. But the basic premise is finding like a church or a parking lot that is willing to allow homeless people that are living in their vehicles to park overnight and leave in the morning. And the premise that we had was to have some resources at that location as well. So, hey, if you're looking for food, this is where you can go. Or if you're looking for a job, this is where you can go. There's a lot of different resources that are coming out of the shelter that the majority of the community are not aware of that could really benefit these folks. But I mean, if you get on social media, specifically Nextdoor, you can see numerous people that, they've inherited a motorhome or they've inherited something that they can live out of and still provide for themselves, but they cannot park anywhere in this town legally. So they're parking down by the rivers, they're parking in people's neighborhoods, they're parking anywhere that they can find illegally, and then potentially getting fined or ticketed, and they can't pay that. So, they're technically homeless, but they're not. And it's a real struggle and a sincere problem in our area right now. The one thing that I had mentioned in June was that I had actually reached out to, they have numerous places that actually do this already and have been extremely successful over the last couple of years. So I was able to obtain one of their kind of step-by-step plans. And I had offered to share that, and I still can if that's the route you guys want to go. I just didn't want to arbitrarily send that out because it is, information, proprietary information. But it's kind of a guideline on the steps and avenues who you would need to solicit to run it, manage it, potentially reach out to those resources, that sort of thing. So it is a big undertaking. I'm not going to lie. But I was and am still very big proponent of it. So.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. I kind of wish that the homeless shelter would take that lead though and create, I mean, they had $38 million to build that. They could have bought another lot there and be like, this is the place in town where you can park for the night. This is where you can sleep in your vehicle. And to do it with $5,000 though, just seems a little daunting. I know you said joining up with like a church group or something like that, but it just seems kind of overwhelming and a giant task, as you said.
Mac Rossi for the record. I just had a meeting with the city last week on this thing about parking vehicles and stuff. And we suggested that possibly where the homeless areas off of the shelter is off of 80 and 395, that once the construction equipment is out of there, leave it open for them to park over there overnight and get them off the street. Because I've been very much concerned about Paradise Park that they have such a problem over there with a lot of vehicles parked. And the city says, well, that's the county and whatever they want to do. And I said, is it a possibility the city could recommend it to the county? And they said they'd give it some thought. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's pockets of those all over. I know on Vassar, the post office down there, and then by the airport and Peckham, there's a lot along in the warehouse districts and stuff back there. So.
Good point.
So just real quickly for your consideration, I think what I'm asking you to do is a little bit like I'm saying, jump off the cliff without being able to see where you're going to land. Because I'm saying choose a problem that we want to address, and we don't have ideas. We don't necessarily need to have ideas as a solution. We'll get there, right? And I think it's such a natural thing to go, this feels like too big of a problem. I can't choose that unless I can see where we're going to land or where we could possibly land. And so we are definitely ideating. We're definitely throwing out ideas, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just think that almost all of these issues, you could find a bite-sized chunk to address. Part of that would definitely want to be, we continue to empathize throughout. So if we're going to work to help people living in their vehicles, we're going to need to talk to and try to understand at a deeper level people who are living in their vehicles and what that's like from their experience and their perspective, right? Whether it's substance abuse, homelessness, any of these issues, I think if we're not directly experiencing them, part of it is going to be inviting people in who either work at organizations in those areas, not just to see how we can partner, but to also help us understand the issues and the root causes at a deeper level. So I don't want you to feel like you have to have the solution in mind before you choose the problem. That's all.
Do you guys have a top pick or?
I kind of like the substance abuse overdose fatalities, and to your point about having people come in and tell us their perspective, I think first or second meeting I came to, there was someone from the homeless advocate that he was fantastic. I think he'd be a fantastic resource for that very issue, and providing Narcan to ambassadors. That's just kind of what I jotted down. That would be doable with a $5,000. And I know we're jumping ahead, but I kind of like that. That's something I think it's some small idea we can work with. What's your thoughts?
Well, I love Carly's idea. Honestly, I do. And I'm going to follow up on that separately, but I still worry it's a big chunk. There's only 4 of us and we want something that can be sustaining. And so forgive me, but I think that is very doable. We have great communications with the Downtown Reno Partnership, and I think it's something we could get our arms around. I think things will spin off from that too.
The other one I kind of like is the downtown feels unsafe and sometimes dirty. I bring people like from out of town, downtown all the time. And I'm like, no, I really shouldn't have done that. Like, sometimes it's nicer just staying in our neighborhood and going out to eat and doing things. but I want to show them because I love the river. I love downtown, but sometimes I wish I hadn't. So I kind of like the downtown feels unsafe just because I don't know if something with the parks, who was here earlier, we could do some kind of cleanup and now that there's park rangers, maybe that could be a part of it. Cleanup and safety kind of thing. So
I
that's
think
another
that
idea.
there's something that Councilmember Taylor initiated for this summer that is certainly a step in that direction. And that is the West Street Plaza. Do you know, are you familiar with the area? It's right by Wingfield Park, which is down at the end of West Street and First. There's been some beautification of the gardens and the things around there, natural vegetation. But for a long time, it was not a safe place. And one of the things that she's tried to do is to energize that area by having throughout the summer activities, walks, beanbag things, ice cream social she had, stuff like that. So I think there are some things in foot that, we could tag on to. I think it needs to be for a younger generation and at different times. Most of it is aimed at seniors, I feel, which is fine, but there's more than seniors downtown. And I feel very sad to hear you say that, but I've heard that so many times about downtown. Yeah, the perception outside of downtown. If we could, that's more than a quick fix though.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know the area you're talking about. It's right where you can walk across Wingfield.
Yep.
The bridges are right there. And there's a lot of times large groups of people that would seem scary or feel unsafe to tourists or people passing by. And so I don't know if we could help somehow with that. I wouldn't mind that as well.
Matt Rossi for the record again. Nathan, who is the head of the park, this guy I think is going to be terrific. I really do. And what is going on right now, the parks only have 2 rangers and they work during the days. And we've found that, or he's found that going at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to chase them out, they just come back after you're gone. They're in the process of hiring another ranger that's going to work a swing shift and then implement this situation. And that's why I was asking about the police department. If they have a real problem, the rangers really can't do a lot, but they can call the law enforcement in. So they're working on it. They really are. So hang in there.
And I know it seems like maybe we're getting off track because you just want us to pick one of these, but I also feel like this is where actual ideas and things can happen, is when we just have a discussion about how we're feeling on the subject.
No, absolutely. I don't want you to feel rushed at all. I think the discussion is rich, and that's where you have to come to an agreement essentially, right? Or vote. So
Luckily, there's not many other things on the agenda.
right.
And we have an uneven number of members here tonight, so the vote was good.
Well, can we
Just a
narrow this list down to say 2 to 3 at the outside and then maybe arrive at something there? Because you're looking for an answer tonight, right? You're looking for picking a topic.
So it's your community project. I don't want to rush you through your process. I just think once you choose a broad area, that's when we can really start the work of figuring out, how do we understand this issue more deeply? Who should we invite in to present? Who might we want to collaborate with? So I think right now there's like too many possibilities. And so once we choose something, and I feel like, maybe we're struggling a little bit because there's so many things that we want to address. And so it's like commitment fear, right? But once you pick one, this is just the first time we're doing this. So ideally, if it goes really well, it's a pilot, maybe it happens again, next year or something. So if you're not ready to choose one, I'm not going to force that on you. But
Yeah. And I mean, to piggyback off Jana, Abby Mayorga for the record, but we can give you guys as much time as you need, or similar to Director Uliat's, what do you want? You want soccer complexes, you want this, you only get to pick 3, we could implement a ranking. You can take this home, think about it, and then provide those rankings to me or Jana via email, how you rank all these issues. Obviously not we know that all of these are important to you, but that may be able to alleviate the pressure as well. It's just, okay, but this is my top one. And then we come and back the next NAB meeting, present those rankings and then go from there.
I would also like to hear from Carol as well at some point too. You know, I think it's important to have everybody's voice.
Mhm.
So if I'm not sure how we do that, but I mean, she has a very important voice in this, Max. So I'd like to hear from her too.
I was gonna say I can pick downtown feels safe, but I could be convinced to go with substance abuse.
Yeah.
So
So, Mr. Chair, at this point, I would recommend to continue this item until next time and then have those conversations with each other. And we'll make sure to include Carol, or give Carol the opportunity to be included as well. And she can watch the recording based on the conversations that you guys had.
I like that idea. I think that'd be. good.
Yeah, I think, again, just as I'm sitting here, just thinking about it, it's, I may be too driven by being afraid that we overreach, you know, and that's maybe always my limitations is I love like 128 page plans, for example, but I'm more interested in can they be implemented? How long will it take? And is it really going to happen? But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't aim higher than that. So the downtown feels unsafe, feels so nebulous to me, but to hear you say that, I'm sure your feelings are echoed. Just not sure what can be done, but I don't want to rule that out either.
I don't really know. I mean, I was thinking maybe just while we were sitting here, like even if it was like a call box or if it was better lighting or cameras or different something else. I mean, I know that's not a $5,000 fix, but if we could implement one, say it was down at that park that they're already starting to work on, you know, something that lit up and it was like, just in case of emergencies, you know, call, or, I mean, that's just one thing. Maybe if that worked, we could continue that in different places along the river. But I kind of feel like we need to get this process going. We've been delaying this for 6 months now. I would like to vote. I mean, or pick one. So.
Make a motion.
Well, I haven't really heard which one you like here yet. I know that you're picking kind of the substance abuse one. And so I'd like to hear what you're leaning towards or.
I'm leaning towards the substance abuse because of my recent experiences. I don't like the idea of young people dying through that if there's a simple solution. One thing I do want to do though is before I was thinking I need to contact the DRP and see how stocked they are with those devices. First of all, maybe they're way overstocked and that would not work. So if you'd allow me to do that and I'll get back to you through Abby so that you can, that be disseminated. I mean, if they have a shortage, then that's the one I would go for because I think it's doable and I think we can make an impact pretty quickly.
I think if you'd like to kind of table this to the next meeting, it might be helpful to at least choose like 2 or 3 that then you could share with the rest of the board and be able to have a better idea of narrowing it down a little bit. I think Carly wanted to.
Just 2 real quick little things, and I don't know if this helps you guys at all, but I think it's worth saying. With our 2 different groups with the Washoe County Leadership Academy, just because it's identical situation, we chose 3 different topics. I mean, we agreed on a topic, we went for it, wouldn't work out. Chose another topic, wouldn't work out. The third, both groups, it was our third idea that actually stuck. Just so that you guys know, It doesn't hurt to explore something, to pick something, explore it. Maybe you pick tonight substance abuse and then you get to DRP and they say, we got this, we don't want help, we don't need help. And then you regroup and come back to another idea. I'm just saying passion is good, but the idea is more important. So for what it's worth, guys.
It's good advice. Good advice.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we table it for tonight? That way we can check with Carol, get her input as well. And at the next meeting, we will identify at least one project. That's my 2 cents.
So, Mr. Chair, you can make a motion and then there can be a vote.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we table the discussion of picking a problem or identifying a problem until the next meeting.
Well, I think what Carly was saying there is that we could pick the substance abuse and then you could check it out and see if they actually need our help. If they don't, then we can move on to like downtown feels unsafe and go about what are our options there and how can we even do anything there like with 5,000? You know, I mean, that at least gives them over the next month some direction to focus and see what we can actually do. So I would
Okay.
like to vote.
I'll withdraw my motion and go ahead and make a motion.
Well, Bryce Chisholm, I'll go ahead and make a motion that tonight we pick substance abuse to explore what we can do moving forward. And then if that doesn't work out, then maybe downtown feels unsafe would be our next option to explore.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We've identified
Great.
the problem for tonight.
Good job.
Awesome.
Jana,
So-
this voting thing is really hard. We normally only do things for informational purposes.
I know. We'll work on getting some presenters at the next meeting and some more information on different organizations working in this vein, because I know DRP has been mentioned several times with the ambassadors, but this is a huge problem, right? With a huge scope, and there are a lot of different organizations that work in this area. So I think we've got a lot to explore with that issue. So.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's who I flashed on when they started bringing this subject up. Okay, so we'll move on to item C, Board Commission Committee Member Reports and Announcements. Do we have any?
Not on my end, Mr. Chair. Any on your guys?
A question for Abby. I absolutely understand the wisdom shown by all of the council members in not doing anything to appoint new members of the NAB. How long is that moratorium going to hold? Is it just until the map has been chosen?
Yeah, so of course the maps will, with the new addition of the new ward, there will be a new NAB. So there'll be a Ward 6 NAB. So at this time, as you saw, a lot of the council members have decided to not appoint, rather just reappoint. So once we get the new maps, we'll get new direction, how those NABs will look like, how they'll be structured. And then additionally, we'll have to go through our current NAB rosters to identify, like if you did get drawn out of the Ward 5 and you're now in Ward 6 or whichever ward, how you would like to continue. So we'll have a more thorough update in September for you guys regarding next steps and what that looks like. But once the maps are approved, we'll get that direction.
Okay, so let me just be more specific in my question. So that won't be implemented until the election in 2024, November. So does that mean we're going to subsist on 4 NAB members on the current Ward 5 until November of 2024?
Yeah, so that's a council member discretion. I think once they get an idea of what that looks like, they'll continue to make appointments. We're always taking applications. I actually have applications here in person for those who are looking to continue to apply. So that will be council member discretion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if we don't have any more announcements or reports, any future agenda items?
Mr. Chair, I had a couple. Would the NAB be interested in looking at the final redistricting map that's chosen and just talking about it, discussing it? Because there are a lot of implications from that, I'm sure.
Yes, I'd like to hear about it. I mean, we should all be interested to see which ward we're in,
True.
There's a lot more than that. There's very big implications where those lines are drawn, but I'd like to hear more input. Maybe Callie could give us another quick overview of the new map.
I will ask her once the maps are approved. Yes, I was trying
Doesn't
to
have
think
to
of
be
deadline.
September, but. at
Yeah,
some
okay,
point.
perfect. I was
Yeah.
like, deadline wise, I
Yeah,
will have to
yeah.
double check just to make sure that we get our agenda posted in time, because so it goes to council August 9th for the first review, and then it has to go back again August 23rd.
Yeah.
Don't correct me, but August 20 something to get the final approval. And that's if everything goes correctly tomorrow. So September, November timeframe.
She won't have anything to do after that. Stone, you
No,
realise,
she'll
so
probably be
she-
gone. She'll disappear for like 3 months.
And also, in the last few months, we've had 2 representatives from Development Services. One talking about Title 18 Land Development Code
Mhm,
change. I think that was Grace.
mhm.
And I'm also aware that Lance Ferrado I think he said he was going to start this month, the review of Titles 4 and 5 licenses and permits. And it'd be great, they don't necessarily have to be in person, but just an update. Where do they stand? Where are they in the project? When are members of the public going to be invited into that party so that they can have input?
Okay.
I'd appreciate that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other future agenda items?
We do have public comment for this item, Mr. Chair. Mac?
Okay.
Hi there, Mac Rossi for the record. Real quick, still get a chance to get out of here early. I think you're going to see great things with Nathan, the new Parks Director. I really do. You're going to be really surprised. We're all surprised. And with his presentation, if you have any questions, ask him. I'm on the Parks Commission. Ask him. So we'll work that off. 2 updates. Carly and I have been working since we were on the NAB over 10 years ago. 9 years ago, we started on the North McCarran and Keystone. We finally, looks like we had the results. They're going to make a change over there. Next year, it'll be completed, 2024. They fought over a signal. They fought over a roundabout. They're going back to a signal. The only comment NDOT made is, soon as we find some poles, we can put a light on. So that's where we stand on that. So, and also on 7th and McCarran, the bus stop that is parked right on a right-hand turn going into the shopping center. Looks like that's going to be moved down just a little further. Being on the cab, I'm making this short so we can go on. We had a presentation over there from the county as far as a new program they're coming out with in case there's a disaster, some kind of an incident, or something where the public needs to know immediately and whether they need to get out, how to get out, or whatever the case may be. They have a great presentation on it. It's supposedly going to be implemented at the late in September. I'll give her the information if you guys want it when you have some time. It's well worth listening to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you and Carly for the success. Persistence.
It's moving quite fastly. It's only been 9 years, so we're getting there.
Is that because they're putting that park trailhead down at that area as well? I mean, and then the new apartments are all up there.
Yeah, that part of it is that it really helped out with the park situation. And also there are up to 800 apartments in that area that have to come down and only can make a right-hand turn. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we're getting there.
Yeah, thank you.
Any additional public comment?
I'm kind of interested to see what council does tomorrow on the medians in Midtown. They're talking about ripping them all out. So I'm interested to see what happens with that.
Wow. We did not.
I accidentally didn't put it on the agenda. I'm sorry, Mr. Cecil. It's my first one back. My first one back. So
I nominate Bryce Chisholm to chair the next meeting.
I second the motion.
Okay, motion
I'll write that
passes.
down off the record. All right, no public comment on Zoom, Mr. Chair, no, none in person.
Sorry, I didn't approve that agenda. item, so.
Okay, well, they have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second then.
All right,
All right, thank you.
well done. Thank you.